Alright everyone, welcome back again to more Misericorde Volume 2, White Wool and Snow. The investigation carries on in this particular chapter, and with it, some, I guess you can say, unseemly surprises, especially with the sisters that we're going to be currently encountering and, for lack of a better word, questioning. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys, and I'll leave it all for you to see without spoiling it. So if anything else, hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for all the love and support. And here we go. Perhaps Mora or Marta or Charity would join. I didn't much care. As I walked toward the meeting spot Angela had proposed, I remembered what she had told me about the elders and shivered. I might have been resigned to allowing myself to be fawned over, but I did not have to appreciate it. The idea of spending a drunken night of revelry with women who had bets placed on my chastity filled me with an indescribably dark feeling. I could feel the hook and line growing taut. I could see Angela in the shadows ahead. Excuse me. She was wearing a large traveling cloak over her robes, an idea I became increasingly jealous of as the night grew colder. Very prompt. I am surprised. Did you retrieve the book? Of course I did. Come. We can talk in the garden. She did not give me time to respond. I followed her down the path toward the hedgerows. You were absent from supper. I take it you were convalescing after your little escapade? If you must call it that. I'm rather cross with you, I'll have you know. You might well have blown our entire plan to smithereens. Calm yourself. I was simply going to express that you were lucky to miss supper. I don't think there was a single moment of silence. Those new omelets and Flora dominated the entire meal with their babbling. Oh. I couldn't help but giggle. That does sound excruciating. You don't know the half of it. I may have to avoid the refectory altogether if their behavior isn't curtailed. Don't you mean rectory? No, it should be called the refectory, but it was built to be a rectory. The shorter name stuck, I suppose. No doubt the sisters of this abbey have always been slightly dull. I am surprised you hadn't noticed the error. I just went along with what I heard. So much for my boundless knowledge of abbey building plans. I do often miss having private meals. You once took everything privately. I sometimes find myself feeling envious. Perhaps I should become an anchoress. She stopped and turned to face me, now that we were deep between the hedges. Wouldn't that be amusing? I suppose it would be? I was bewildered. I could scarcely remember a conversation with Angela that hadn't felt like a duel, but she was attempting, at the very least, to be friendly. It did not suit her. I was concerned. So, the book. I retrieved it with ease while you were all away. Can I have it back then? I am eager to get back to work. That would be a poor idea, I think. We discussed how much of a risk it would be for you to continue so openly. What if Eustace saw it in your room? We have no locks. She wouldn't even need to be particularly paranoid. She might have just happened upon it if it were to enter your bedroom for any reason. I know I told you to stick close to her, but I did not expect you to whore yourself out for the cause quite so quickly. That is not what happened, and it shan't be happening. Really now. I know it sounds ludicrous, but Eustace's story earlier... That really was what happened. Tell me all then. In exacting detail. There isn't much to tell. Then you'll be finished with the story quickly, and we can move on. I was ill, as you saw, in the chapel. Imbalanced humors, Moira said. She told me to rest, and I tried to. I really did. But I was full of some strange energy, and couldn't fall asleep. So I went for a walk around the abbey, and felt compelled by a strange sensation to sneak about. And the rest, well, you saw. I feel humiliated, Sister Angela. I'd rather not belabor. I tripped over my words as Angela opened her cloak to reveal her naked body underneath. Whoa. Really? I was so shocked that I could have fallen over, but my hook and line drew taut and kept me upright. You have a sickness, Hedwig. I see it in your eyes. Sister Angela! Cover yourself! You're in the grip of some devilish hysteria. Where it came from, I cannot tell you, but I can plainly see how thoroughly it controls you. No! I know you're kind. You would throw off all your clothes and responsibilities and run into the woods if you had the opportunity. You would seek to join the Celts or some witches in the woods and live feral. You dutifully shunned sin and pleasure for 20-odd years, and the devil had a remarkably easy time getting his claws in you as soon as you stepped outside your cell. It is not your fault. In fact, I pity you. I have struggled with similar proclivities. The superior couldn't have known, but she made a grave mistake choosing you for this work. She treated you like some wretched invalid, and pulled you off the street to be her sin eater. But Limbarrow is an ocean of sin, and your kind is all too eager to plunge into the depths. You never had a chance. I have only just kept my head above water while I lived here, managing the same affliction you let get the better of you today. Am I correct, Hedwig? No! Yes, I am. I know I am, because you haven't looked away from me. She closed her cloak. What are you feeling right now, Hedwig? Are you relieved that you can no longer see my naked flesh? Or are you hungry? Have I relieved you by hiding myself, or do you feel as if I have taken your plate away from your mid-meal? Wow. She's just as kinky, I guess. I had nothing to say. I was trembling, terrified, and sick. I am right. I see it in your eyes. You look like a starving dog. But a dog can be trained. Are you committed to finding the truth, Hedwig? Can I count on you to conduct your half of our investigative work? Will you do whatever it takes? Yes. You have sinned, and will sin again in the course of your investigation. Lying, stealing, and God knows what else. And you have in turn driven me to sin as well. I have stolen for you. I am sorry, Angela. Do not apologize. We must accept these sins if we are to find the truth in this cesspool. For Catherine's sake, I would do anything. She meant the world to me once, before she was taken by madness. I would spend the rest of my life on my knees repenting for every sin I committed on the path to finding justice for her. Would you? Yes. I don't believe you. Yes! Again. Yes! Angela looked me up and down with calculating disdain. Good. Then kneel. Oh my god. I know what this is turning into now. Oh man. I fell to one knee, overwhelmed with strange emotion. I bowed my head to her. I felt the coat touch on my shoulder and saw a flash of light. Angela held her dagger against my collarbone for a moment, then moved it to the opposite side of my head. Then I take you as my knight, Sister Hedwig. We will uncover the truth. If we have to burn Limbarrow to the ground to find it, so be it. I will prostrate myself before God and beg for forgiveness for the rest of my life, and you may pray beside me. I will guide you out of the darkness as I seek my own salvation, because as pitiable and wretched as I once found you, I see the same illness in your eyes that once gripped me. I rose to my feet shaking. I just want to be free of all this madness. Then follow me. Naked as the day. Gosh. A cure for hysteria. We're already on chapter 16, right? Damn, we're just going by him like nothing. We traipsed back to the garden toward the cloister. I kept sneaking glances at Angela's heavy cloak. Every now and then, the manner of her steps would shift the fabric and reveal the shape of her body underneath, just for a moment. So, we also learned, we knew this for a while now, that Hedwig is a closet pervert. My god, I am quite drunk. To be frank, I don't even know if this is how I felt in the moment. But it is an experience I have recounted to myself many times in my head, in moments of weakness. No, don't sound so surprised. I have momentary lapses of judgment even now. To tell you the truth, I am back in this cell for the purpose of my own safety, aren't I? My own well-being, a place to account for my many sins and repent. I pray every day and accept my due gladly. Ah, man, it is what it is. But every now and then, I think, well, what's one more little sin? I'll be here for a very long time. As long as I'm improving it at a rate greater than I am adding things to repent for onto the pile. As much as I loathed to admit it at the time, Angela was correct about me. I had been neck deep in evil since I joined the congregation, and if there was any hope of finding the truth, I would need to navigate these waters intentionally. My time in my cell, I thought, had fashioned enough armor for me to survive anything. But my raw scriptural knowledge was simply overwhelmed by the outside world. Pure white snow trampled by the footfalls of fallen women. I don't mean to bore you too greatly, but my mind did drift to Aquinas. I was having second thoughts about what I had just agreed to while swept up in Angela's compelling theatrics. As shaky as my faith had become, I still believe in right and wrong, but I did calm myself thinking about the relative nature of goodness. Not in the sense that goodness is relative to the world it exists in, but in the sense that it is relative to the creature that exercises it. I wanted to do good things. I was an imperfect being, and striving for beatitude was in my nature. Sin is inexcusable, but it is forgivable. I could repent for sins, and if my sins resulted in a truly good work, justice for Catherine and the defeat of the evil that killed her, I reasoned that I was justified. I could and would repent and account for my choices, and I believed that I was making the best possible choices available to me, even if I was being forced to draw from a quiver full of sins. The evil that had killed Catherine, I could not think about for too long. Every day I was surrounded by women who might have killed her, or might know something about who killed her. As Angela's cloak revealing her swaying hips in front of me once more, I became embarrassingly distracted. I felt the hook tug at me. Eustace had been mocking me when she suggested this by the stream, but perhaps I truly had been possessed. I thought about Flora's demonic circle. Had its evil touched me? Is that why I felt so compelled by perverse thoughts? Angela turned at the steps to the refectory and walked up to the door. In here. In the refectory? Where else would you suggest? I don't know. One of our rooms or the cellars? You know as well as I do how much traffic passes through the cellar, and the dormitory seemed like a poor place to conduct an investigation into our fellow sisters. I suppose you're right. We entered the building. It was pitch dark at first, save for a beam of moonlight illuminating the long wooden table. Angela searched around the corners of the room for a candle. Eventually, she found one in the cabinet against the wall. She lit it and placed it atop the table and invited me to sit down. Now then, she reached under the table and produced my workbook. You left that in here while we spoke? I kept a close eye on the door while I waited for you. But we went to the garden, and the book is still here. Can we move on? Of course. She splayed the book out on the table and flicked through the maps I had already completed. You had a somewhat admirable idea before Eustace found you out. There is an important element you have overlooked, however. What is that? You have been asking the others about the morning Catherine's body was found. While I am sure there might be some contradictions to be discovered there, you have neglected to ask people about the night prior. Oh. I felt impossibly stupid. Yes. Oh. She reached out to flip the pages once more. I found myself searching for a glimpse of her breast in the candlelight. Eyes up, pervert. You have assumed that she was found in the morning, immediately after her death. She might have died at any point during the night. That much was a more difficult question to pose to people, though. I imagine a murderer with any sense would immediately balk if I asked where they were that night. Yes, and of course everyone involved or not would have an easy answer they could send you away with. I was asleep. It would be a lie, of course, but a fairly unassailable one without proof to the contrary. I leaned on the table and held my head in my hands. Had all my work thus far really been useless? I hadn't had a chance to compare the stories I had received to each other before Eustace took the book. Perhaps there's still a chance I've captured something important. Not that I can see. I groaned. Margaret and Catherine proposed a meeting later. I already had Margaret's story, but Catherine said she was moved by the idea of chronicling Catherine II's last moments. The corners of Angela's mouth flickered. How fortuitous. No doubt those two will have practiced their stories together regardless of whether or not they're involved. I realized something. Come to think of it, I already know Catherine's story. Catherine I mean. Angela raised an eyebrow. I felt terrible exposing Catherine's secret, but this felt necessary. Catherine had a visitor the night Catherine II was killed. It was James. Come now. She was so reticent to tell me this that I can scarcely believe it was a lie. In fact, when I visited James in the hospitalum, he told me the story first and Catherine admitted it after some convincing. But Darcy found his bloody cloak. She did, didn't she? When I reminded Catherine of that, she insisted that she was with James the whole night and that he did not bring his traveling cloak with him. It was left in his cart according to him. So, Darcy lied. What reason would she have to do that? I have no idea. She doesn't seem the type. She hardly seems able. But you should follow up on this with her. I suddenly remembered something Darcy had said many days ago now. There is another element of Darcy's story that isn't consistent, come to think of it. She took me to visit the sheep not too long ago, and we talked about all of this. She mentioned that she had been tending to the sheep the morning Catherine's body was found, and that she found the bloody cloak on her way back to the Abbey. But she also mentioned seeing and smelling smoke. I've just realized. I reached for the book and flipped through my completed notes. Only Charity and Adela have mentioned anything about smoke so far. That is rather odd. I remember smelling smoke. I did not think much of it in the moment. A mishap in the kitchen, I presume. But if Darcy had not started cooking yet, as she was returning from the hills. So, if she noticed it and felt it was outside of the ordinary, that is something. Angela tilted back in her chair and let out a horrid squawking laugh. Ha! James may be spared the gallows because he fell in with that fucking whore. Life is full of mysteries. She seemed rather upset. Well, what is it that you dislike about Catherine so much? Angela narrowed her eyes and folded her arms across her chest under her cloak. Sister Catherine believes in nothing but her own pleasure. She is a rascal and a betrayer. I have no time for her anymore. Understood. Sister Catherine has been given many chances over the course of her career at this abbey to turn her life around, and she insists on taking every opportunity she can to indulge herself. She has the same beast inside of her as you, only fanned up without shame. It will be very easy for you to get what you need from her. She spoke with such force that the candle flickered. We sat in silence for a moment while Angela composed herself. Finally, she spoke again. This works in our favor, however. She is an easy mark. Have your meeting with Margaret and Catherine tonight. Tomorrow, speak to Darcy and then come and find me. I will talk to the superior and arrange for us to go and talk to James. What else do we need from James? Now that we're working together, I would like to ask him some questions of my own. And we should ask him if he remembers Smoke. I nodded. Speaking to Darcy might be difficult. She and Eustace are so close. Find her in the kitchens before breakfast or something then. Catch her in the hallway. Apply herself. Angela spun the book back around to her facer, and she flipped through the pages once more. The mentions of Smoke must matter, although how I do not know. We must close this gap and find out exactly who does and doesn't remember it. You know, it probably was a good idea to team up with Angela. Like, because of her, they're progressing now. She looked gravely concerned. Well, we have a plan of action. Can I trust you to enact your part? My part? What was she doing again exactly? Yes, of course. Good. Tell me all about what you find, and I will reward you when it is done. Oh God. Okay. I see how this is. I see how this is gonna play out from now on. All right, Angela. She snapped the book shut to punctuate the conversation before I could ask what she meant. Can I have that back? I think this book has likely outlived its usefulness. It is more of a liability than a boon. Now that we have determined a key element in these stories, I shall hand it off to the superior to dispose. But Angela raised a hand and I stopped. Thank you. Good night, Hedwig. You may leave first. We should not be seen walking back to the dorms together. I nodded and made for the door. And Hedwig. Yes? Do whatever you can. Of course. Whew, man, that's crazy. The further I got from the refectory, the tighter the hook inside tugged at me. Part of me wanted to sprint back to her and beg her to explain herself, but I felt more compelled to do the right thing and attend my meeting with Margaret and Catherine. As demanding as my twin was, I could tell she was as curious as I was about this reward. As I passed the Misericorde, I could hear uproarious laughter and loud voices muffled through the doorway. All of them sounded young and exuberant. Perhaps Angela had been right about how much the newcomers talked. I sighed and continued onward to the dorms. I wasn't quite sure what to expect when I knocked on Margaret's door. Today had been a whirlwind of activity, and I hoped that I wasn't about to collapse again in front of these two. I could hear a musical instrument being plucked. I knocked again. Do come in. God! What's happening here? Am I in the freaking... I'm about to say mine in the Playboy Mansion. What's going on here? I opened the door and I almost choked as I entered. What were the odds? Oh! I shut my eyes as fast as I could. Curiosity begged me to open them again, but even after Angela's little stunt, I was not used to seeing naked flesh unannounced. I should leave. Nonsense. I invited you in. Well, yes, but... Would you mind looking at me while we speak? Pay her no mind, Hedwig. This is just something she does. Did you hear that? Something I do. As if I'm the only girl in the whole wide world who appreciates a breeze every now and then. Margaret continued bleakly, never taking her eyes off her mischievous friend. We're glad you're here, Hedwig. Catherine just enjoys making people uncomfortable. It's a game she likes to play. Of course it is, and I'm rather good at it. Well, in that case, consider the game won. Huzzah! Margaret finally turned toward me. We fancied having a little chat with you. That we did. Margaret explained your plan to fill in Catherine II's lost work, as it were. Very noble. I'd love to do my part. Yes, you said that before. Margaret gestured to her desk chair, which I took gladly. You actually told me your story already, didn't you? Did I? I must have forgotten. I'm sure I must have left a few things out. It won't hurt for me to go over it again, surely. I glanced back and forth between Margaret and Catherine. What were they doing? If either of them had any involvement in Catherine's death, surely they realized how suspicious this was. I suppose not, but... Oh, very well. I did tell you my story and I told it true, but you can't go and write it all down in ink, can you? How embarrassing it would be. And I was thinking, and Margaret agrees, that it would make for a better story if some of the, well, the more sordid details were replaced with something more pleasant. Just so you know, this is all Catherine's idea. You helped. Very well, but what would you have me replace it with? You were in a rather close proximity to someone of great interest to the whole affair. Yes, that's just the thing, isn't it? I can't bear thinking about what people years from now would think of me if they read all that. I would look like a strumpet at best, and once they lopped the poor boy's head off, I feared they might start concocting tales of my involvement. They? My terrible hangers-on, Hedwig. You might think me petty, but I have a long list of enemies who would stop at nothing to dig up dirt on me and spread it all around. Sticking me in this convent wasn't enough for some of them. Did you know that for the first year or two I was here, I was sent reams of hateful letters? Someone even tried to break in and attack me. No! It's true. It was a bit funny. It was altogether harrowing. My life was in grave danger. He threw paint at you. A knife was next, I'm sure of it. Thank God for Catherine II. Rest in peace. What did she do? Oh, this was around the time she was trying to turn us into some sort of militia. I thought it was an utterly pointless manly exercise, but when she saw that man chasing me with a basket of temperas, she leapt into action. Catherine II had been sweeping at the time. All that wretched artist was that I didn't want this awful portrait. She dispatched the fellow with 2, maybe 3 strikes, knocked him out cold, and then sent him back down the mountain after he came to. He ran up with the mail carrier, but she made him walk home. My knight in shining armor. Anyway, Catherine has enemies. People who are on the lookout for any false move of hers. Whatever for? To make me miserable, who knows? I apparently have suffered enough for their satisfaction. These are your political enemies you've mentioned. I thought I might have alluded to this before. Yes, that is them. So surely you can understand my predicament. Would you please be a dear and write something else about me in those chronicles of yours? I thought for a moment. A lie was a lie, but I was beyond being able to claim that I wasn't a liar. I certainly didn't want any harm to befall Catherine, as strange and irritating as she often was. And while it would leave my chronicles somewhat incomplete, I reasoned that Catherine had already given me her story about the morning the murder was discovered. I sighed deeply. I could agree to this. If anything, I felt slightly relieved. Angela had been rather dramatic when she had described what the others desired of me, but favors like this I could handle. Let's say that I agree to do this. What would you have me write instead? I haven't the foggiest. You're the chronicler, not me. Fair enough. I decided I might try to press my luck ever so slightly. Well, what can you give me in return? Catherine's eyes went wide, and Margaret chuckled. Ooh, she's learning. She's rather rude. One shouldn't do good things expecting a reward. At any rate, I thought this. she waved one arm around her nude form. Might be reward enough. Nonetheless, Hedwig, I suppose you are entitled to greater compensation. Margaret, would you leave us? Margaret snorted. Very well. I wouldn't want to get in the way of your negotiations. You're my angel, Margaret. Congratulations. Margaret left her room. If this is what I think it is, this is going to be hilarious. Catherine patted the spot on the bed where her friend had been sitting. Come a little closer, darling. The hook obliged quickly, dragging me to Catherine's side. Closer still. There's hardly room. She tugged at my leg, with surprising strength, and dragged it onto the bed. Straddle me, dear. Pretend I'm I was gonna say horse, but given the context, I would rather you didn't pretend anything of the sort, actually. My heart was pounding. Of course. I swear, all these women are gonna be manipulating her throughout, and I feel so bad for her. Gingerly, I obliged. I clambered onto the bed properly and sat atop Catherine's hips. I attempted to tuck my frock between my legs to keep us somewhat separated, but as soon as I was settled, Catherine idly tugged at the fabric, pulling it free from underneath, my weight ensuring our skin was touching. She reached for my wrist and held them firmly. Now then, ask nicely. I'm sorry. Go on. I simply can't give you what you want unless you tell me. Well, spit it out. You were very confident a moment ago. You know, when I first saw you, I was hardly interested. Not really my sort, I told myself. But there's something undeniably arresting about you, dear sweet Hedwig. Make yourself available. I wasn't quite sure what was coming, but I was whizzing through calculations in my head. Perhaps it'd be worth it. Catherine's thumbs brushed over the creases where my legs met my hips, and I held my breath. What is your sort? Men. There's just no substitute. That being said, since winding up here, I've learned that I can never say no to a pretty girl asking nicely. So, ask away. My legs were fidgeting, and my muscles were tensing. I was being pulled straight down the hook between my legs, yanking me so violently I felt like I might be torn open. I stumbled forward, steadying myself on Catherine's bosom. Oh. My breath was ragged. My face must have been bright red. I probably looked utterly crazed. The light caught her glistening eyes. Oh, what the hell was that? I leaned back and swung my leg back up and over Catherine. I staggered over to the chair I had been sitting in previously and fell into it. Catherine sat up in the bed. Are you feeling well? I've never felt better. Just too much, too fast, I'm afraid. You are an odd one. I thought this is what you wanted. Ever since you played so bafflingly coy after I caught you in the window. I gazed across the room at her. She was beautiful. I could see why she seemingly bewitched so many men. If I were a man and I had not heard that dreadful stories about her, I would not be opposed to marrying her. She was 10 or so years my senior, I guess. My eyes lost focus and I imagined what life would be like if I were such a man. Marriage. Where would we live? That mansion in the village still? Would we have children? I couldn't even begin to imagine bearing a child, much less raising one. All I could think about was seeing Catherine like this in her bed, and in the hall, and in the kitchen, and in the garden. Hedwig. I appreciate that this might be some sort of revelatory moment for you, but I have company at night more often than not. Could you be a dear and have your deep thoughts, I don't know, in your room? I hope I didn't offend you. Offend me? No, I don't think so. Really? I just don't know what to do, and it all feels so weird. Sinful. A few of the others had that problem at first. You get used to it. You'll find ways to justify it to yourself. Or so I'm told. It was never much of an issue for me, I must confess. So you and Margaret? Obviously. Who else? Catherine raised an eyebrow. Nosy. Adela. Eustace can be fun when she's not in one of her moods. Darcy's attached at the hip to Eustace, but occasionally she'll get a little wild. Moira, naturally. Naturally? And nobody else is upset about all of this? Upset about what? Far be it from me to endorse all of this, but entertain the thought, do people not get jealous of one another? Catherine blinked. Jealous? None of us are married to each other, Hedwig. There's no honor to besmirch. Nobody's in love. I should hope not. Perhaps you spend too much of your adult life cooped up in that cell of yours, but it's not strange. Friends of mine used to have their midwives stimulate them in times of great need. It's a good treatment for hysteria. What is? Catherine shot me a withering look. If you want to speak to a doctor, go ask Moira. I apologize. No need. Where was I? Ah, my conquests. Margaret, Moira, Adela, Eustace, Darcy, Charity, once, and we were both incredibly drunk. Similarly, Suze, I think, I once made a pass to the superior, but she pretended not to hear it. And then there was Catherine II. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Catherine II? That's right. I fell back in my chair. Tell me about her. What's to tell? She was more ravenous than me. Anyone I've had, you can assume she had as well. Tell me what it was like. What it was like? Yes. I had a pounding headache and the world scarcely felt real anymore. Angela had warned me about these women, and she had been right. But I did not care. I wanted to know about Catherine. I needed to know everything there was to know about what she looked like and how she felt. Are you sure you wouldn't prefer I demonstrated? She smirked at me and struck a pose. I'm still up for it. No. Just tell me about her. If you insist. You know, reading through all this, I had a feeling that Moira would be also, I hate the saying it's always the quiet ones, because it's not always necessarily true. But Moira, it did not surprise me when Catherine the First brought her up. She was a few years my junior. She looked a bit like me, but with redder hair. Very red, actually. And she was wickedly funny. You heard most of this at her wake, surely. You said a lot about her, but please continue. I don't really know what else to say. She was a wonderful friend, and a fierce competitor. She went a little mad, I think, toward the end. Something was weighing on her, and I never really found out what it was. I wish she would have told me, but perhaps it was something beyond my expertise. It made me feel rather frivolous. What was she doing toward the end of her life? I heard that she was always up to something or other. Projects and so on. Yes, she was. She sequestered herself for a long time planning this or that, in the months before she died. I'm not sure what she was up to. I wasn't privy. Very few were. I tried my best not to take offense. But right toward the end, I was let back into her schemes again, and I don't quite know how to put this, Hedwig, but if I had to describe her final project, well, it was you. She was very taken by you. There was the ice water in my veins again. She never stopped talking about you when we gathered in the Misericorde. Thank you very much, Catherine. Not at all. I stood up groggily. And, I usually take rejection very poorly, but I understand that you come from odd circumstances. Normally, I would say you had wasted your chance, but if you ever change your mind... Thank you, Catherine. If I were ever to change my mind, as you say, I might like to, with you. Catherine beamed and fell backward onto the bed. That's what I like to hear. Now get out of here. I must cure my hysteria. Perhaps I could watch? I could learn a thing or two. Not on your life. Now get out. Ta-ta. Oh, I thought she was thinking that. She was actually saying that out loud? I winced as I shut the door. For a moment I panicked. I hoped that the last exchange hadn't ruined the relationship utterly. I scurried into my bedroom and closed the door. And that is all. I went to bed and fell asleep.
When you want to get off that darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down.